Hey everybody, welcome back to Lithography. Kramzer here with Joe and Jason, and it is time for Album of the Year, 1982. First things first, everyone take a good hard look at Joe's t-shirt. It kind of marks the year perfectly. This is, to me, an explosive year for 80s pop. Kind of introduces a really good golden age, at least to me, of great pop songs, which is a little bittersweet because even though I think you're going to get just littered with great catchy pop hits and even some one-hit wonders, the album format starts to take a dive in pop music a little bit. Later on, there are some really good pop albums this year and next year, Duran Duran being one of them. There's other artists coming out with big hits right now, like Don Henley going solo. Billy Idol has White Wedding this year. You've got Toto, Huey Lewis, Rick Springfield, Dexy's Midnight Runners, Culture Club, Men at Work, Prince, Flock of Seagulls, and the big one, Michael Jackson's Thriller, still one of the highest selling, most popular albums of all time. Hit after hit on it. And then some of the ones that aren't quite as big a hits are amazing songs as well. You've also got a nice kind of fluttering of metal this year, maybe sparked by Ozzy biting that bat's head off its body. But you've got some really good hard thrash metal and then some more glammy, hairy metal and then some stuff that will become that later on. You've got Scorpions, Iron Maiden, Twisted Sister, Whitesnake, Motorhead, Canada's Anvil, many others coming out with stuff. Also, a bit of a down year for more of the classic rock foundations right now. Queen is just reamed for Hot Space by critics and fans alike. Joe Strummer of The Clash disappears. He'll be found later in France. Billy Joel has a motorcycle accident. The Who claim they're doing a farewell tour, but they would come back, obviously. So kind of a different landscape here. You've got a bigger new wave sound. Pop music is really taking the reins. But I found that there's a pretty good amount of really good stuff here. MTV is in full swing. I think that's worth mentioning. It debuted last year, but it didn't take long for it to really catch momentum with the hip youth culture, and videos are huge, and that kind of reflects where the charts go as well, with the singles and even the one-hit wonders that we had mentioned. So who's starting it off for 82, guys?
I can. 82, interesting year. I had a lot of albums that I wanted in my top 5, including an album by the artist of the shirt I'm wearing, but just missed the cut for Rio. Also missing the cut, Thriller, Fleetwood Mac's Mirage, Judas Priest, Screaming for Vengeance, Asia's Asia. There's a lot of good stuff. A lot of stuff that will be in my top 250 albums of all time.
No Thriller? I would have bet the farm Thriller was your winner, for God's sake.
Yeah, it was on my list at one point. It dropped off. It's been all over the place. I think I prefer Off the Wall to Thriller, despite the heights of Thriller. If they had switched Say with The Girl Is Mine, Paul McCartney and Michael Jackson, I think Thriller might be in the top spot, but there's a couple tracks on Thriller that kind of weigh it down for me. So to my list, runners up include Billy Joel with The Nylon Curtain, probably my favorite Joel record. Really like Allentown, Goodnight Saigon, kind of his, I don't know, he was going for like a John Lennon kind of thing here, and I think it works well. Not quite as cheesy as maybe some of his earlier work. Also, Number of the Beast by Iron Maiden. Great, not a debut, but the debut with Bruce Dickinson, and kind of a different direction. That's kind of classic new wave of British heavy metal sound. Number of the Beast, Front of the Hills, some great songs on there. Also on my list, I got Lexicon of Love by ABC. Great kind of synth pop album with a real kind of heavy bass. It's almost like I don't know the lead singer's name, I forget, for ABC, but kind of a David Bowie-esque sound. But just a really kind of cool record, and really the only one in their catalog because they kind of took a weird direction after. So it's really a one album wonder for ABC. And wouldn't be a year for me without Elvis Costello, so I have Imperial Bedroom also making the list. Kind of a different sound. He went with Jeff Emmerich, which was one of the Beatles engineers, more kind of like show tuney, less of the piano kind of lounge pop, pub rock kind of sound. A big return to form according to the critics for him, but I love all his records. But the winner, and I don't know, let's see if you guys expect this. I'm gonna go with Signals by Rush. Just fantastic. This is my favorite Rush era. The big synth sound. I don't know what it is about the 70s Rush, the real prog rock stuff. I like it, but they really kind of start to get me on Signals. Just the emphasis on the synths. Everything sounds huge. I think Subdivisions is one of their best songs, maybe their best lyrics. I like Alex Lifeson's guitar sound, I think, the most. His solos are shorter. They're really just tuneful and melodic. This was actually Rush's biggest hit, I believe, as far as the albums. It was 10th in the US. I think it was like number 1 in Canada, top 5 in Britain. Subdivisions, Analog Kid, New World Man, Digital Man. Just a bunch of really good songs. Chemistry is awesome. Whole album, just really good. I think it might be their best album, in my opinion. But it's just a really good sound. I like kind of the way Geddy Lee's vocals have come down a little bit from those shrieking heights. Now they're a little more grounded. And I think the band just sounds really good on this one. So Rush finally takes the top spot for me in 1982.
All right. Interesting.
Completely fascinating.
All right. My top 5. 82, still in a bit of a lull, I think, along with 81. It's kind of weaker years for me. I had trouble deciding what should go in the 5 spot for me. I had a bunch of things sort of in and out of that spot. Some things that were sort of there but didn't make it are the trio of Todd Rundgren records, the 2 Utopia records from this year, the self-titled record and Swing to the Right, and the ever-popular Tortured Artist Effect. Just miss out. I was also looking at some like new wave pop stuff, Flock of Seagulls and Spring Session M by Missing Persons almost made my list, but really those albums are great for their singles, and I don't know if they're that great the whole way through, but in the end I ended up going with Signals as well. Wasn't sure that any Rush would really make my lists, and now we've got 3 years in a row where they sneak in. I've also got Long After Dark by Tom Petty, a record that I think a lot of critics don't really like that much, but I think it's great. I think it's better than Hard Promises, actually. I think every song on it's really strong. I've also got Security by Peter Gabriel and Avalon by Roxy Music. But my number 1 is going to be Imperial Bedroom by Elvis Costello. My first repeat winner since the Beatles took 4 out of 5 years in the 60s. And not only is it a repeat winner, it's back-to-back years. Big hot streak for Elvis Costello. As Joe said, this is kind of him upping the sophistication of his writing a bit. Jeff Emmerich's producing. You got a bit of like a Burt Bacharach kind of influence coming into the sound on this record. Lots of good songs. I think it's fantastic. Number 1 for 82.
All right. So couple of albums that Jason had. At first look, I was considering them, and then with a re-listen, kind of fell significantly. One of them being Avalon by Roxy Music, even though I might say that More Than This is my favorite song to come out this year. I absolutely love that song. But the rest of the album is a bit plain for me. And then Security by Peter Gabriel I like, but not as much as the 5 I've got, and it didn't play as well as I remember it. I don't think it's one of my top 5 Peter Gabriel records, but it is still pretty good. Here's what I've got as my runners up. I've got Combat Rock by The Clash, which is a very strong number 2 favorite Clash record for me. As good as London Calling is, I think Combat Rock is a normal band's best, could be their best album, but it's not going to reach London Calling. The next one I've got Pornography by The Cure, which for a long time was my favorite album of The Cure because it didn't have a lot of the big hits. It didn't have that sort of sweeping pop love song romanticism about it. It was really more about the texture and the atmosphere, and very dark and kind of abstract. And then I've got one that I'm kind of shocked Joe didn't have, 1999 by Prince, which I really dig. And then the one I know Jason really wants to hear, something that I brought out of the cellar from my college years that I've forgotten about and really only found out because I had iTunes hooked up and I could separate them and list them by year. I've got You Can't Hide Your Love Forever by Orange Juice, which is a really awesome, jangly raw rock record. But my winner is Signals by Rush. Pretty monumental pick, if I do say so myself. This is the first time Joe and I have agreed, I think, since Pet Sounds, maybe? I can't remember. We'll have to go to the archives for that. This is also my second two-time winner, Springsteen being the other, and this is my first back-to-back win, Moving Pictures having won last year. Joe hit the nail on the head, but I do kind of reject the idea that this is an album that a lot of fans or critics, complain about not having enough guitar. Obviously, up to this point, this is the least amount of guitar, and it is very synth-heavy, but it is hard-pressed to find not good guitar playing on this album. There's amazing guitar work. Analog Kid is one of his best guitar, just straight-up rockers. There are really cool, delicate solos, like on Digital Man. The riff on the weapon is awesome, and the whole album is really cool because they finally really narrowed in on their audience, which are these sort of, like agitated, feeling left out, kind of suburban nerds that maybe aren't the cool kids. I mean, that's what Subdivision's essentially all about. And the album's got this really cool, like, modern tech, they're listening to Police a lot here. You can kind of get that reggae kind of sound, and it's really desolate and cold and very cool, synth-driven. Sounds like, you're stuck inside this computer landscape, but it's really awesome. So many good songs on it. I will probably contend that Subdivisions is the best written drum part in the history of music. You really listen to that song, there's not much going on with the synth or the guitar or the bass. The drumming does all of the expression on the entire song. It is fantastic. I'm still not sure what the hell he's doing at the end in the outro, but it's just mesmerizing to listen to. The lyrics, I think, are the best on this album. It's got the best theme of any Rush album. I love the prog stuff, but I'm kind of with Joe that this, especially with Geddy's vocal range coming down and still being higher than pretty much everything else, but not piercing your ears and going off the rails, just sounds really good right now. Is my favorite era of Rush, sort of like that Hemispheres through Grace Under Pressure, maybe 5 or 6 year run there. So this was a very easy win. Can't wait to do the Rush listography because right now, I think this will be near the top or the top with Joe, which will create some good heat and some good debate. So I thought 82 was a pretty good year. I think 83 will be much better, but I didn't think that there was a lot to complain about with 82. Joe, you're shaking your head. You struggled with this?
No, I love 82. I think 83, for me, the odd years of the 80s are much weaker than the evens. 83, there were only 6 in contention. 82, I was devastated having to make some of these cuts.
I feel like 81, 82 is sort of the weakest point of the 80s, and it's all uphill from here. I think every year gets better and better pretty much.
Well, I think it's kind of right in the middle, but I haven't looked that far ahead. That said, I can't wait to see what 83 has in store. I would imagine some of our fans will probably be surprised or have Thriller up there for themselves. And come on, Human Nature is the best song on Thriller. It's awesome. But let us know what you think of Thriller, of 1982 in general. Let us know what you've got as your top 5, any big ones we've missed or any big ones you love. Let us know what you're thinking. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell for notifications, and we will see you in 1983 Album of the Year.